Welcome back to Coast. I'm George Norrie. William Henry, investigative mythologist, has spent more than 10 years analyzing the myths of the ancient gods. He's the author of 9 books who is able to decipher the god games currently being played on Earth. Thousands of years ago, Stargate technology, including the cloak worn by the Stargate-traveling Illuminati, was lost to humanity. William has been investigating the U.S. government's role in retrieving it, pulling back the veil on ancient Stargate myths and the cloak of the Illuminati. Welcome back to Coast. Hello, William. How are you?
Wonderful, George. How are you?
Good. Was that definition that I read out of Webster's accurate about Illuminati, that people or groups claiming to possess some superior enlightenment?
Yeah, I think that's a very good definition. You also will find a definition that an Illuminati is a newly baptized Christian initiate, which opens up a whole host of associations and questions, and then we can save that for later. But yeah, okay. I would agree that Webster's had it pretty much on the money.
I always thought when I heard that word, William, Illuminati, that it might have meant evil or groups of evil people. Is that necessarily the case?
Not necessarily so. In fact, I'm very often confronted with that question. People will say, well, are the Illuminati positive or negative in your mind? And I try to take the neutral ground and say, as Shakespeare said, nothing is good or ill, but thinking makes it so. It's certain that the term Illuminati has been stigmatized, particularly in recent history, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that no matter at what point in history you're describing a person who thinks of themselves as an Illuminati, they're usually also described as a heretic, a person who is going against conventional wisdom or is actually placing themselves in opposition to the current religious authorities.
I get a lot of emails, William, from people who say, well, the Illuminati is responsible for this or that. So I guess, one of the things I'd have to ask you, because you have looked into this for a long, long time, what is the Illuminati, or who are the Illuminati?
Well, the very basis for the concept of the Illuminati goes all the way back to ancient Egypt and Samaria, where you pick up stories of shining ones, beings of tremendous enlightenment that came to Earth, perhaps from another planet, perhaps from another plane or dimension, bringing the tools of civilization at first, and then for a select group of humanity, they also offered the tools of total enlightenment, or what we might refer to as God-making.
Is it nowadays, are there a lot of people on this planet who claim to be part of this so-called Illuminati?
Well, if you read some of the Illuminati literature today, you would think that anyone in media or broadcasting or politics or
not me,
but those up at the top of the pyramid of human civilization would be the Illuminati. But I over the past 5 or 6 years, I've developed kind of a personal problem, if you will, with some of those perspectives on the Illuminati, because very much like this notion that there are certain select bloodlines on the planet that rule the planet, which is a corresponding concept, that takes the individual seeker, the initiate who's on the path towards enlightenment, which presumably is the purpose of Earth life for many of us, at least that's what many people tell me their purpose on life is. If we think that there's just a select group of people in a very small number of people that have access to the secrets of the ages, and that you have to be part of a bloodline in order to subscribe to those teachings, then that pretty much counts out about 9 in 10 humans on the planet.
Yeah, and I've heard that too. I've heard people say there's this select group of people who come from these bloodlines, and they could be very wealthy people, bankers, you name it. But they're out there, and they have one goal in mind, and that's control, because they've got so much money, they're bored with life.
Well, that may be so, but once you pull back the cloak of the Illuminati, cloak in this context referring to a veil, a curtain of illusion, a veil of mystery that is placed over this, when you pull back the veil, you find out that there's a little man behind the curtain.
For those people who don't know you, tell me a little bit about William Henry, because, of course, you've been on Dreamland quite a bit, and I had a short stint on my show about 6 months ago, real short. Tell me a little bit about William Henry and how you got involved in some of the topics you've written, like this latest book, Cloak of the Illuminati.
I actually started my quest in this area when I was in college. I read an international bestseller in 1982 that was called Holy Blood, Holy Grail, which was an extremely controversial book at the time and remains so to this day. In fact, it was the power pack, if you will, that has driven my search. And essentially what Holy Blood, Holy Grail proposed was that the crucifixion of Jesus was a carefully scripted drama. Jesus survived the crucifixion. He married Mary Magdalene. They had a family. And this now becomes the root of this bloodline idea of the Illuminati, Jesus presumably being the first Christian initiate. And it's his teaching that is ultimately that which is hidden. This book, Holy Blood, Holy Grail, proposed actually that there's two forms of Christianity. The religion about Jesus. This is the story most Christians subscribe to, the billions of churches of faithful Christians that go to the church just today. The story of a highly evolved spiritual being that came to earth, befriended the little people, preached a message of love, healed the sick, was persecuted by the political authorities of his time, died, was reborn, and ascended into heavens with a message that he would return. I'm sorry, that's the story of E.T.
Very similar, isn't it?
Yeah, very similar.
Very similar. You know, I'm looking at your website now, William, and you're getting slammed from people who are looking at your website. I mean, you've gotten thousands of hits just since it was announced that you were going to be on the program. Do you travel a lot in order to do some of the research for the books you've written?
I travel through books primarily. What I find is that this information comes in waves, and I just consider myself a surfer of this information, constantly looking for the material, following the source material, looking for the original stories behind the stories that so many of us live our lives by today. And what I found in that search is that, as a moment ago I described the religion about Jesus, what I found is that there's a religion of Jesus as well, and this is the secret hidden religion of the Illuminati. Okay,
explain that for me. What do you think that is?
Well, the best of my knowledge, we're just talking about a person who, in Jesus, whose family considered him a mortal prophet. This was a person who was initiated into the Egyptian mystery schools, as was Moses, who spent considerable time in Samaria, which is present-day Iraq, who traveled throughout India, was initiated into the Buddhist mystery schools, and returned to what we call the Holy Land today with a startling and quite powerful message that anyone can transform themselves from an ordinary human into what we might consider homo angelus, or even, to coin a phrase, homo illuminati, an illumined or enlightened human.
Which then sounds to me like a pretty good person.
Absolutely, but the problem is that the moment you adopt that attitude, you are considered a heretic. You are in direct opposition to the religious and political authorities that are alleged to control the planet.
Well, and I can see that. I can see how very strong religious groups would their hair would stand up.
Yeah, one of the problems with this is you can't have a planet full of Christ-like beings running around. They don't pay taxes, and they don't take authority too well.
But isn't that what he tried to teach everyone a long time ago, that everybody had the ability to do this?
That's exactly right. But what was lost was the exact method by which that was done. In other words, there was a recipe, let's say, that went along with this. There was a step-by-step initiation or procedure all about transforming the human on the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical level that enabled them to put on what I term the cloak of the Illuminati and become, I believe, a Stargate traveler.
How'd we lose it? What happened?
Well, you have an incident, for example, like the Tower of Babel, a famous incident in the Bible where after the flood, humanity had regrouped and had built this tower in Babylon that reached into the heavens. Babel is a word that means gate, so the Babel is the gate to God. But at that time, the Hebrew god Yahweh decided apparently that he didn't want company in the heavens.
Because that's where that temple, that tower was going, right?
Exactly. and he destroyed the tower and separated humanity by language. At that time, there had been an original pre-flood language. We all spoke one language, presumably. And after this time, we're separated by language.